Hey, Michael Church with Crawl Space Ninja, and today I want to talk to you about some mistakes that people are making with spray foam. We recently had one of our inspector ninjas go out to a home, and they had hired a contractor and they spray foamed all of the subfloor of the crawl space. Okay, so I want to show you a picture of what that looks like after it was completed, but also talk about some of the pros and cons of spray foam, and if you are going to spray foam your crawl space subfloor, what can you do to avoid disasters? Stay tuned. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk to you about is some of the pros and cons of spray foaming the subfloor of the crawl space. Now, of course, some of the pros of spray foam in general is that it is a great way to stop air loss. We use it in attics and basements and crawl spaces. Obviously, we use it in insulating rim joists and different things like that because it is wonderful at stopping air loss and making your home more comfortable. But just like any tool, it needs to be used cautiously and applied correctly. So some of the other pros is that some people feel like it makes their floors warmer. And if you want to know about that and what I feel about warm floors in a crawl space, I'll put a link to that video down below. But basically, in a nutshell, the floor will only be as warm as your thermostat, right? And encapsulation has a lot to do with that as well. So anyway, also it, like I mentioned, creates a more comfortable environment because it stops air loss, it stops drafting. It's a great insulator. It also keeps roof decking, can lower roof decking temperatures just like radiant barrier can. So, but some of the cons, one of the things you got to realize is that it's great at trapping moisture and mold. So if you apply spray foam to something that is already wet or moldy, it's going to create a problem, and it hides leaks very well too. So if you spray foam your entire subfloor and then you get a toilet leak or some kind of plumbing leak from above, you're not even going to know that you have a leak until probably it's too late and that flooring is rotted out. But it's also impossible to remove. I mean, it's very, very difficult to remove. And even if you can get the bulk of the spray foam off, there's still a thin plastic kind of layer that can still trap moisture that's left behind without some form of grinding or sanding that may be needed to completely take that off. And imagine doing that in a very low crawl space. It's very difficult to remove if it's on the entire subfloor. And just right now, if you get a chance, if you've had your subfloor spray foamed or you're thinking about it, let us know some of your pros and cons that you might have run into. Some people may love the spray foam, they've not had any issues, while others it could be a complete disaster. So let us know in the comments below what some of your pros and cons are of spray foam on the subfloor of the crawl space. And also, if you're new to Crawl Space Ninja, we hope you'll subscribe to our channel and ring that notifications bell too. Okay, so take a look at this. This is what I'm talking about. One of our ninjas went out to a house and this is what they saw. Okay, so keep in mind, a lot of crawl space professionals out there know very little to anything about how to address mold. So what they will do is they will recommend a spray foam or even a paint like a Kills as a cover-up for mold. Now, some could argue that this mold happened after the spray foam was applied, but I feel like that's kind of not the case because you can see right up here where it looks like the mold has kind of pushed through the spray foam a little bit, and the wood moisture level of the exposed wood was very high when our ninja went out to do the inspection. So this is the problem with spray foam. Okay, whether the mold developed before the spray foam was applied or after, it's still a problem. It is impossible to remediate mold behind here at this point. And whether you use an open cell or a closed cell spray foam, they're both very good at trapping moisture. I know closed cell is supposed to be better at trapping moisture, But there's still some videos out there on the internet where even OpenCell does a great job of trapping moisture too. So they're both really good at trapping moisture. So and they're both really good at trapping mold. So if you've got a situation like this where you've already applied the spray foam, or you're hired a contractor to apply spray foam, and they cover up the mold, you're kind of stuck. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do. This is why you have to make sure you hire the right contractor to encapsulate or address that mold problem in your crawl space. Okay, so let's look at, if you're dead set on spray foam and that subfloor, let's look at a couple of things that you need to do prior to applying that spray foam. Number one, you need to check and control humidity. All right, obviously, you're going to need to seal the vents, install a great vapor barrier, and possibly a dehumidifier in order to do that. So you want to make sure, number one, the first thing you do is check and control humidity. If your humidity is higher than 60%, you want to make sure you control it year round. You might want to get like a ThermoPro humidity reader or something like that that's on our DIY store, and just to keep a constant lookout on the humidity. If you check your humidity in February, right after the crawl space had a chance to dry out, in June, when you kick on your AC, that humidity could spike tremendously. So you want to make sure you check it during the winter and the summer months to see what your humidity levels are. The second thing you want to do, if you find out you have high humidity, there's a really good chance you've got high moisture content in the wood. Okay, so check for plumbing leaks, different things like that. If you currently have batt insulation up in the floor joist and you're going to remove that and replace it with a spray foam insulation, remove the batting insulation and check the subfloor moisture level too. Because remember, this spray foam is going to go everywhere. Okay, make sure you don't have any leaks. And if you have high moisture level in the wood without any leaks, then chances are you're going to need a dehumidifier to lower that humidity and to dry out that wood prior to installing the spray foam subfloor insulation. If you have flooding, okay, so if you get a huge rainstorm, we're currently experiencing a bit of a tropical weather system coming up from the Gulf here in Tennessee and even Georgia. Some of our Georgia locations have experienced from the hurricane that hit down around the Gulf. They're getting a lot of flooding and high heavy rains and things like that. So make sure you take a look in the crawl space about once every couple of months to see if you have some form of flooding or something like that. You can also get something like the Watchdog water alarm and maybe put on the floor of the crawl space or near the door. And this is a way, if it gets wet, it kind of rings bells and sends loud noises up into the living space to give you an indication of whether you have flooding. But just stick your head down there every once in a while and see if you got any flooding. If you do have flooding, install a perimeter French drain and obviously a sump pump, along with making sure you got that dehumidifier and encapsulation installed too. Okay, the other thing is remove mold. Now you can't remove the mold until you address the humidity and the high wood moisture level of the subfloor and the joist, which is why the mold got there in the first place, right? So you want to make sure you do that. Soda blasting is what we prefer to remove the mold, but also some companies will HEPA vacuum, or if you're doing a DIY project, you can get maybe the Anabec cleaner and some rags and cloth and scrub it off really good. But just try to remove as much mold, if not all the mold, as possible, which is why we like the soda blasting, because it does a really great job of stripping all that mold off. Then we apply the Anabec cleaner, and then lastly, you got one last thing to do. But before I get into that, I hope you found this video great and you like this video down below, and make sure you subscribe to our channel. And if you need any DIY products, or you want to get an appointment for us to come out and take a look at maybe doing some subfloor insulation or some encapsulation of your crawl space, there are the websites in order to do that: crawlspaceninja.com or diy.crawlspaceninja.com. So the last thing that you want to make sure you do before you apply that spray foam insulation, after you've done 1 through 4, is to apply a preventative. Now, we love the X70 preventative. It actually has silver embedded in it which silver is a natural antifungal. So once you get the mold removed, you get everything dried out, then you can apply the X70, and that is going to not only keep mold from growing on the subfloor and the floor joist, but it's also going to keep moisture from absorbing in the subfloor and the floor joist as well. But just keep in mind, if you do all of these things, okay, and you get a leak from above, that spray foam insulation is still going to hide that leak and can still cause mold and all these problems that I just told you some ways to prevent. So be careful with spray foam in the subfloor. We prefer foam board on the walls when you're going to encapsulate the crawl space, or the insul barrier on the walls. If you got an open or a vented crawl space, just leave the fiberglass up there and get you a couple of cans of spray foam and seal all those major penetrations to keep that air from going up in your crawl space. My name is Michael Church with Crawl Space Ninja. We hope you make it a happy and blessed day, and we'll see you later.